Hey guys, welcome back to Dune Awakening. Today I'm gonna show you a step-by-step guide on how to have the absolute best start the moment you jump in. This includes lots of upgrades you can get completely free as well, so without further ado, let's get started. Now, I do want to start with a special mention for the class choice we have in the character creation. You're obviously going to unlock all of the skill trees eventually. However, some of the skill masters can be found sooner while others way later. So it's important to take into account which skills you need right now in the early stages. That is why I recommended not picking Trooper over here, simply because you're literally going to find a class trainer for it within the first 30 minutes to an hour in the first zone at the Griffin Outpost. So that leaves off between Mentat, Bene Gesserit, and Swordmaster. However, I would say that Swordmaster is mostly aimed towards PvP, so really I would say it's between Mentat and Bene Gesserit from level 1. So in this case, pick your poison. Mentat has a really awesome drone that's very useful at dealing damage while you're sitting behind cover, so it helps a ton because it pretty much 1-2 shots everything. Meanwhile, Bene Gesserit has Voice Compel, which is also very useful to distract enemies, plus it has a very cool speed mechanic that lets it run really quickly, so very helpful if you want to traverse quicker. But once you're out of the tutorial area, I recommend spending the next few minutes simply collecting all of these resources right here and kind of going through the whole process. You're pretty much going to need every single one of them for all the crafting that's ahead, and yes, this includes the fuel cells that you will need to also power up your upcoming base. I only recommend sticking to shade as much as possible so that you preserve as much of that hydration as possible and not reach sunstroke levels that consume it really quickly. But really, exploration is very important in this game, and one of the first locations we're gonna visit will give us a Sandbike literally within the first few minutes, plus of course a very strong schematic. So that's going to be right here in a place called the Broken Stone Station down south of Haga Basin. It should not be far away from your starting spawn point, but if you go here up this first set of stairs, you're going to find the schematic for that unique rifle here in the back of the room. And this is going to be a very strong option you can craft right away. It will help tremendously for damage against faraway enemies. Besides that, if you pay attention below the same flight of stairs, you're going to notice about 3 or so Sandbikes right here, plus a few more on the opposite end. So you're going to have a very high chance to already get to claim one of them pretty much right here, which I recommend getting right away. In this case, it may be broken and even low on fuel, but just to show you how useful it already was, it let me already go from here almost all the way to the Griffin Outpost, which was on the opposite northern side of this section of the map. So it can last quite a bit, and it's going to be much quicker than you having to run over the desert at this stage up until you actually get to craft your own. You can technically make it last longer if you get the welding torch, which you are from the main story anyway at some point. You can craft a bunch of welding wire and just get this ready. You can only repair a portion of that durability, but if for example you're playing as a Mentat, you will have some passives over here that both help to regenerate more of that durability and even have lower durability decay when you are using the Sandbike. And from this point on, I highly recommend you just follow the main story for now. This is going to eventually introduce you to base building and some of the starting technologies. And on the same note, I highly encourage you to also build your starting base somewhere around the center part of Haga Basin South. So typically around this, as that's going to put you pretty much in the proximity of most of the major areas we're going to want to visit, both from the story as well as from some of the contracts we're going to complete. Typically, I like to be a little bit closer to the Griffin Outpost, but that's totally up to you. And this is what you're going to be doing up until the game points you towards the Griffin Tradepost here further northwest, typically of where you spawned. And this location is one of the first hubs that you get to encounter with a ton of very good contracts with some amazing rewards you really want to go ahead and grab, as well as one of those trainer NPCs that will unlock one of your first extra skill lines. On your way there, whatever you do, just make sure that you grab about 40 copper and also make sure you grab the micro sandwich fabric and EMF generators. If you don't have any at you, there's an Aaron's refuge over here just across the trade post that you can grab, as we're going to give these in for a special mission. Once you're done with that, head over to the contract board and get all of the contracts. More will spawn in just a little bit, but for now, get all of these 3 right here. And specifically, the most important will be copper required, which is why I told you to have 40 copper ready at you, because we can go ahead and immediately complete this. However, this is also part of a longer chain of contracts, at the end of which you're going to get some very powerful upgrades, including some MK2 upgrades for your Sandbike for absolutely free. So for now, I'm going to go ahead, give it in, and then grab the next contract that opens up in the chain, which is called Wrecking Crew. For this, we're going to need to raid the wreck of Alcyon, which is a crashed ship that's overrun by bandits, and there are many of them in the desert, but they are some of the most lucrative as they provide exclusive rewards and some of the best technologies we need to grab. On the way though, we are going to raid another facility, which is the first testing site, a little bit west from it. It's going to be on the way, so there's absolutely no reason to not get this there, since it's also part of another contract that we can eventually retroactively complete. However, before we actually leave, there's one more thing I'm going to go ahead and grab, and that's going to be from this NPC called Gavuri. This is, like I said, our very first skill trainer, which is going to unlock that trooper skill line for us, and we only need to take down 3 targets for him, so we're gonna go ahead and grab it, as that's also going to be on the way. And by the way, do not forget to also talk to this merchant right here. He has a special package for you, and you can buy a unique Liturgon from him right away, which is going to help you deposit a lot of water early on. So this is going to help a ton with hydration levels. That is why I recommend you immediately go ahead and craft and equip this on your character. Plus, we're gonna get a ton of water to deposit in it anyway from one of the areas in just a little bit. And from this point on, we're now going to make our way back east to complete these contracts. And like I said, we already have the Imperial testing station number 2 on the way anyway, so might as well go ahead and finish it. Now, this is good for 2 reasons. First, we're going to eventually have some contracts that need us to go here and retrieve some items anyway, so we can just get them now. And second of all, they also provide components needed to craft vehicles, specifically advanced servworks and also the particle capacitors. But this whole place is filled to the brim with loot. So you can top up on water and max it out. You can top up on bullets and other crafting materials, even get some extra gear over there like shields and whatnot that are very useful. You just have to make sure that you deal with the enemies, as there are quite a few of them. So the first item we need for one of the contracts is going to be right here at the circular staircase that leads downwards. But before you actually go downwards, take care of the enemies and go in the singular room here in the back. In one of the containers here, you should find the automated poison snooper, which is going to be important for one of the future contracts. Before you leave, also make sure that you grab the Sandbike Trad MK1 from one of these lockers, as we can actually give this in for one of the contracts later on. Once you do that, grab everything else in the vicinity and make your way down the circular stairs in the area below, again collecting everything on the way as much as you can. Now, once you go into the next stage of the facility, you're going to reach this area, and there are 2 important items we need to collect over here. One is going to be downwards these stairs to your left, and inside of the next room, you should see a blue wristband, which is important for that locked door that we had at the beginning of the facility, which is going to give us even more rewards. Once you grabbed everything, go back into the main area once again, backtracking your steps. In this case, you should see this yellow bright light in the background that is fully interactable. So if you go ahead and press the button, this should reveal a secret room. Inside, there's even more loot for you to collect, including this Sandbike engine that's going to be useful for one of those contracts yet again. But especially pay attention to the table in the middle. One of the containers over here will give you the Imperial testing station records, which is needed for another contract. Once again, make sure you don't leave anything behind, and now you're ready to progress to the final area in which we can get the final item. So here, there's going to be a quick boss fight that you can take down, but once you do that, make sure that you don't forget to check out the container close to its spawn point. This is going to give you one final set of contract rewards, which is the mysterious vials. We will need this to eventually unlock the Planatologist skill line a little bit later. And now we're pretty much almost ready to leave. We just have 2 more rooms to visit. One is going to be the one after we defeated the boss. This is going to hold our most unique reward, which is this unique schematic for an Emperor's Wings MK1 that will give us levitation in just a little bit, and of course some other crafting materials, including the very useful spice infused copper dust. In fact, this facility is one of the best sources for spice-infused copper dust, as many unique schematics require that. From this point on, the only other room remaining is the blue one. As we got the blue wristband, we can go at the start of the facility and finally go inside. You're going to find more serve works and other crafting components and also useful items to craft your vehicle. From this point on, we're now also ready to complete and finish the wrecking crew. So we're going to make our way towards the wreck of the Alcyon and just defeat all the enemies inside. But also make sure that you check out every single location over here. Specifically because you are going to need to grab some of these plasteel microfibers that you really need for the next section, as we do need to progress into the main story. So these are going to come in limited amounts. Alternatively, you can buy more of these plasteel plates and fibers, for example, from the vendor back at the Griffin Tradepost. But in the meantime, the other container here, important also for a contract, will be pretty much in the upper deck. So if you go here in the front of some of these screens, you should see another container, and this is going to give you the Heltzman amplifier, which you're going to need for this current contract. Grab it, as well as everything else that you may find. And from this point on, you can progress into the upper section, again dealing with any enemy that you may find, all the way until you unlock the final chest. Again, this is another boss chest, so you do get a unique weapon from it, and of course you also get more of that dust that we talked about before. And now, with all of that plasteel and microfibers that you got, as well as the unique components, you're ready to go back at your base and craft them. So let me show you what you actually get. Besides the green armor that the game already points you to craft and equip, the other thing you're going to get are these two items right here. One is the Emperor's Wings MK1. So this is a very good utility tool that, once you equip, basically gives you sort of a levitation. So when you jump, if you hold down the space button, this is going to give you these anti-gravity effects. And like I said before, this is going to couple really well with the grip claw from the trooper that basically lets you now jump over obstacles much easier, because you can turn on the anti-gravity as you are in the middle of a jump claw. So that's going to let your character propel even further. The other one is going to be the very useful Caliph Drinkler, which is basically a knife, but this is going to pretty much handle all of the blood extraction for you. So instead of having to craft blood extractors to do it manually against your enemies, you can just hit them with this knife instead, and that's going to automatically fill your blood containers. So refining them into water is going to be much easier than ever before. And now the next part of the story should bring you to your very first vehicle, which is to craft your very first Sandbike. And because we already got all of those advanced components from the testing facility, we no longer have to go over there. We can just combine those with copper ingots to craft our bike right away. Just make sure that you unlock that in the research menu. And you're going to need, of course, all of the components, the 3 threads, the PSU, the engine, frame, and the chassis. And once you have all of them available, you can go ahead and just assemble them with your assembly tool. And lo and behold, desert progression and traversal just became a lot easier. But one other thing that I recommend also unlocking is your vehicle backup tool. You really don't want to leave your Sandbike or any other vehicle out in the open, because sandstorms can destroy it. But with the vehicle backup tool, you can store them inside of that tool and summon or unsummon them whenever or wherever you want, as long as it's in the outdoors. And of course, assuming that there's nothing in their inventory. Also, I don't recommend unlocking or crafting any of the MK1 carry capacities, extra inventories, or for example the jet boosts, because you're going to unlock the MK2 versions for free in just a little bit by giving in all of these contracts we just got. But now that we have the Sandbike, the next part is going to be even easier, because now we can go ahead and also quickly finish the Proving Grounds, which will unlock that Trooper skill tree. So in this case, we just need to take down the 3 targets, which we're going to find around these caves further east in Haga Basin South. So one of them is going to be here at Caliph's Stand, another one at Shamal Tunnel, and finally the last one a little bit further south from that at the Edgeway Cavern. So simply going over there, in this case, dispatching my drone, literally 1-2 shots them, and then I can just progress. And from this point on, we can take our bike as well as all of these contracts all the way back at the Griffin Tradepost and give everything in. Starting of course with the skill trainer, which is now going to unlock that trooper skill line for us, giving us access to that really cool grip claw, but other damage related abilities in there as well. Since we finished Wrecking Crew, we can also give that in to progress further in that contract chain. We can also go ahead and give the Fremen finds over here, including, those 3 micro sandwich fabrics, as well as the EMF generators. We can also go ahead and give in the testing limits, because we pretty much got the automated poison snooper from that testing facility anyway. And the final one will basically be just giving in some of the extra components we got for vehicles anyway. For the other, we have already a thread that we got from the facilities as well, but we only need to craft another one to give to in, and that's going to fully complete our mission right now. And the chain quest is now completed, and this is basically what we're going to get from it. Essentially, we are going to get this really cool tool over here, which we can go ahead and use. This is very important because in the next area, we will now need to farm a new resource called iron, and this is going to let us get that right away without having to unlock anything in our skill line, and it's going to increase how much we get from existing yields from copper and granite. Besides that, we also get the MK2 inventory expansion slot, as well as the boosters for the Sandbike. However, you can only have one at a time. The booster basically gives you quicker speed, so you can use it with shift, but I do recommend getting that inventory capacity for now if you want to put all of the excess materials in here, especially since you likely got hundreds of them and don't want to refarm again. This can be a good way of storing them, at least until you move everything to your next base in the second region. Now, there's only one other thing you can do in this area, and that's basically to get the Planatologist skill line. As you likely noticed that there's a new contract over here on the board, or maybe several of them. One which is called Assistance Required. And guess what? This is going to bring you back to the same testing station number 2. But because we already finished it and got the vials from the final boss, instead of having to clear that once again, we can simply head over here at the top of it and give it to this guy. Simply go through the dialogues, and then you can immediately report back to him that you already got the vials, which is going to unlock the new skill line. This is actually going to be very useful because it has a lot of options to increase the yields that you get from literally every type of farming that you do by a significant margin, by the way, plus some really cool anti-gravity skills that you can use either at your own advantage or to distract your enemies. And that basically concludes today's video. This is pretty much all you need to know. If there's anything else you want to know about the game, or if you have any other questions, let me know down below in the comments. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.